Your nervous system decides how much money you're allowed to have. And this video is not going to be generic because we're not just going to be talking about money amounts and how to just earn more of this thing that you see on your screen, but we're going to be talking about the life around it after you earn the money that you want, which if you're looking to land your dream job, you're looking to grow that business, start that business and have an income and life expansion, then this video is absolutely for you. We're going to get things fast on the physical plane and sustain it long term. So lock in and let's start. So it's interesting that growing up, I've always been taught the importance of saving money and even just having a reputable job that earns me stable money. But as in Asian culture, I was always taught the importance of never draining money by always saving it. And the thing is that, I grew up in a fairly wealthy family from when I was a baby till I was 5. Then at 6 years old, our family's financial situation turned around. So even though my grandparents were really good at earning money, and I guess they were good at investing too, but in terms of my parents, their investing wasn't their lane. So therefore, I wasn't really taught the importance of compounding money over time. And the predominant thing that I was told to do growing up was to make sure that I study well in school so that I can go into a reputable university, get a reputable job, and after that, make sure that my money is saved every year. And this is the problem, guys. This is the problem because if you ask yourself, I was crazily obsessed about this question for decades of my life, what money really is and why we place it as gods of our life. Like it's because I grew up, in Thai culture, but in Australia, and my mom watches the Thai news a lot, and all they ever complain about is, money, 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 and it's like suddenly money becomes this giant, right? This money become this giant, and us become an ant compared to money. So it's like we're always looking at this promise, this trust that is just built on collective society. Money is trust, right? That it's such a big deal. And of course it is a big deal because we need that thing to pay for our rent, to pay for groceries, to pay off our mortgage, to pay for food and shelter. So all that my consciousness ever knew as a young child, who was, she had her ego, she has a very limited paradigm. And the way of seeing world, extremely sheltered, by the way. And my biggest priority in life for such a long time was to be a good daughter. That's the one thing I really want to be. But when you're a good person, especially a good Asian daughter, you fear of rebelling against the norm. So let's put this as well. So therefore, when it boils down to money, you can define money on many angles, that money is basically a tool or it's a trust. Because back in the days, people would trade cattle and furs in exchange for goods and services until you can't really define the value of each product. You can't really see that if one gold is worth 3 cattle kind of thing. So then people started inventing bronze and then silver coins to exchange for the goods and service. And then eventually it became paper note, and then the banks, and then now it goes into crypto and stuff. And it's but why do people literally they sacrifice so much of their mental, spiritual, and physical well-being for this thing that I can't even define exactly what it is? Because sometimes it's on my screen. Sometimes I can touch it in paper form. Sometimes I can put it in my pocket in a coin. So it's become a big trauma in my life because I didn't understand what this power, this thing that had so much power over me and my family truly was, right? So it can be a cash. It can be crypto. it can be a bank figure or a bank statement, right? But I still don't understand what this is because it's vague. I seriously don't understand it. The only thing I understand as a child growing up is that I had to save it with my dear life. I had to save money because, like, we weren't really taught how investment really works and how to compound over time and how to diversify and all these kind of things. But the one thing that I never grasped until recently was that having $1 million does not guarantee anything in your life unless you guarantee it for yourself. And this is what I mean. Let me show you. So there are two people here who both have $1 million, let's just say. And the thing is, $1 million has different values in different countries. So I went deep into like even exchange rates and asking myself, why do people that come from the UK, when they come to Australia and Sydney, like the buildings that I want are affordable to them, and there's many of the people that come from UK to live in the area that I wanted to live in. Then I asked myself, how come it's not affordable for me or my family? And that's because the exchange rate that we used to was in baht, in Thai baht. So it's like all these things, right? I was really crazy about this. So let's just objectively 1 million. It can be US or Aus dollars. See, the person that invests in others, accepting them, how they invest or spend this 1 million is very different to the person that invests directly back into themselves. And of course, on a theoretical level, we understand this. But on a subconscious level, we don't understand this. And the reason why we don't understand this is because majority of us grew up in a family where we pedestalize money. We really put it on a high pedestal. So like a lot of our trauma, especially as Asians growing up, is that you've got to perform well in school. But if you really ask me, why do Asian parents really like become tiger parents and force their kids to go to tutors and study maths and chemistry and study things that they're not really good at, so that they can get into a reputable university where the logo of that university defines them as a person? And if they don't get that logo attached to their name or their resume, they become worthless in society. Then after that, they're like, but you got to get into this reputable firm and make our family proud kind of thing. If you ask yourself, like, why do people force their kids to go through that trauma of having to neglect their true selves and their true passion to pursue career paths that they're not passionate about? It's in the pursuit of the feeling of stability, of earning money, of increasing their potential to earn more money. So basically, you're prioritizing like the future income more than the kids' well-being themselves. And if we place ourselves below money and put money on the pedestal like it's the god of our reality, how are we supposed to win against this game? How is money supposed to chase us when we're the one that's chasing them constantly? This really upsets me a lot, but we're going to go back to this first. So the payoff that a lot of Asian parents, at least like in the default ecosystem I grew up in, is that they pedestalize money. And it's okay to pedestalize money because I understand that when you go to Thailand, especially where I visit my grandpa, like, when you go outside the house, there's people from different walks of life, and people that come from Burma and they work at the petrol station and all that kind of thing, and it's like 38 degrees every day, and they get paid less than $100 a day or something, like less than $100 or $300. Sorry, 100 or 300 baht a day or something like that. It's really low pay. So I understand that money is really essential, but when you invest in others liking you, right, what you basically do is you minimize yourself. You minimize yourself because you being a part of the social contract is more important than you prioritizing your well-being. So what you start to do is you put up a facade to create an image But that facade comes at the sacrifice of you abandoning yourself. And this includes things like going to the school that your parent tells you to go to, finishing university at this particular place that your parents tell you to finish it at, and then getting pressured by relatives and cousins and being compared to people on how well you're doing based on a company's logo attached to your resume. It's just so ridiculous. Basically, this is what we do since we're young. We abandon our own needs. We abandon our own potentials to thrive in our own way for mainstream education, for a conventional career path, where like the future is that if you become a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, then your future is going to be well off. And then you get surprised why after you graduate, you're still unemployed because you're not winning the game of life. Basically, when you do these things, right, your self-esteem goes down the drain. You don't know who you are as much because you're living a lie to please other people. So then as you grow older and you somehow able to get yourself to reach this point where either the bank account, your assets, your investments compound to more than $1 million, right? But then what happens is that this trauma, this act of self-abandonment, it becomes a frequency that's emanated in your vibrational field for life unless you heal it. Because when you do this each time, your self-esteem depletes and you're now suppressing either resentment, guilt, fear, as well as anxiety. All these things, and even shame probably. So then you start to carry this like lower rungs of Dr. David R. Hawkins' map of consciousness chart into your life, in your adult life. And now you start to pursue like bigger things, like you become a boss, a manager. You even strive to be a company founder, CEO, investor, kind of stuff. And now you're all about like titles and shit, like fancy titles and reputation and that kind of stuff. So now what actually defines you, your lower eye, by the way, what then defines your lower eye is things, material things outside of you, like the car you drive, the house you buy, and what age did you get that mortgage? You know, the bags that you carry, what kind of handbags, designer bags do you carry? You see influencers do that a lot. So now these like material things are the reason why your self-worth, you think your self-worth is high, because you now have an accumulation of these material things. But compare this to this person that also has $1 million. But what they're actually doing is they're investing it solely on themselves. And when I say investing on themselves, I'm not just talking about they invest back into their business or they put it back into their like investments for diversification, like into their stocks and their real estate. Not just that. They invest in their own, if I put it in a very like sarcastic way, sanity. Basically their well-being. So I'm a big fan of aespa. Well, I really like their music, and I saw a live by Giselle. So K-pop band, which they debuted back in like way back, I think 2020, something like that. And Giselle did this live, and as a reputable top K-pop idol, she was saying that health is everything. And if your health goes down the drain, it just like your life cannot be wealthy. So she's basically saying health is wealth. She didn't really say that you can't be wealthy without health. But she literally, as a K-pop, like at the top of the rung, says that your health is your wealth. And like you start to really care about one thing in life when your health goes down the drain. And that is when you start to get sick, you know, you have a cold, or you're injured, and all you want in that time is for your health to be optimal again, for you to be healthy again. So I'm saying that well-being is not just about physical well-being, but I'm talking about mental and spiritual. Because you also see a lot of spiritual people that are weird about this whole thing, because it's not that they are weird, it's just that their approach to life is weird, because they also operate in the desire to prove themselves because of the baggage they went through, where they had to minimize themselves to fit their parents' needs or their family's needs or their social circle's needs. And they have to have a facade growing up, that they have to be somebody else, so that's not authentic to them, for them to progress up the career ladder. So then they get into spirituality, but without healing your desire, your over ambition, and your shame and your guilt and all that kind of stuff. And you start to go down the other path where you appear to be like it's called, the word is called blong, which is like you're letting go of everything and you're surrendered, but you're not really surrendered. It's just like a facade. But the person that's truly rich from within first, they actually invest in their self-love tank. And you may be like, this is too cheesy, man. What are you talking about, self-love tank? I'm saying that instead of them minimizing themselves to fit a social construct, they go within and prioritize their value in life. Their values in life maybe is that I don't need to achieve things by a certain milestone. I don't need to marry by 30. I don't need to marry by 30, then divorce at 35. Because I just realized that I'm not passionate about this husband and I outgrew him, kind of thing. And it goes the other way around as well. So they don't have to prioritize pleasing other people, and they don't prioritize minimizing themselves. So therefore, they are okay in their own solitude, because in their own solitude, they now have access to their capital I, which is their higher self. So once now you're operating as the highest version of you, you are now connected to the infinite intelligence. And so once you kind of let go of the egoic construct that shaped who you are, what then happens is that every decision that you start to make, it's going to be incremental decisions that compound in a safe way. So I understand people say you got to take risk and everything, but they make decisions in a way where every one of their decisions, they compound and create an exponential effect like this, because it's stacked correctly. So therefore, whether that incremental decision is an investment in their stocks a bit, but they also invest in their gym, their meditation, their day out by themselves, their solo day, and then their relationships with the loved ones. And they focus on a beautiful architect of life more than how they appear in society. So therefore, the value of this 1 million is completely different to these two lives. So the million itself, the objective number is neutral, except that the value it gives to this person's life is so much higher, while the value that it gives to this person's life, it depletes, because this person is now focused on draining themselves, which then therefore leads to a drained bank account eventually. And this person is focused on incremental steps where their energy compounds in a way that creates exponential results, because they're patient with themselves and they live their life in a way where it fulfills them and it deeply satiates them on their own term. So when they see this money, it's like they are equal with the money. They're equal with it, which is something I'm going to explore in the next point. So, are you ready for it? Let's go. So it's really interesting, because now that we've spoken about people's upbringings, and the first person literally can have a lottery win. But the reason why the lottery win goes down the drain later is because the nervous system is only familiar with the version of them that minimizes themselves. And what happens when you minimize yourself enough times, and it creates muscle memory? Your self-esteem goes down the drain. And once your self-esteem goes down the drain, you start to make impulsive decisions that you think is compensating towards your lack of fulfillment towards your life, such as you're going to quickly use that $1 million to go and buy a new Porsche when you don't even have, a solid idea of how to reinvest that money. And you start to make fast decisions that are unsafe, like way too risky. And so then over time, you buy that Porsche and then you buy the material things to fill a hole inside of you. That's when the money doesn't even add value to your life anymore. So it's not about the money itself, but money is a vehicle or a tool, and it's the way that we use it that nourishes our life. Because this first person who has worked on herself or himself, basically, they are aware that they were operating as the lower I right here, who may be a bit financially illiterate, so they kind of get financially educated, but more than anything, they realize that money is the byproduct of their relationship with themselves. I get it that douchebags and bad people can have a ton of money, but that ton of money doesn't nourish their life. It's destructive to their life. And we didn't come here to live a life full of destruction. So therefore, they elevate their consciousness to be the version of them who eventually can calibrate at their end state. So let's just say the end state is here. And the end state is what I call the wish fulfilled, where they finally have that harmonious life, where they may not have $100 million of assets, but their overall life architecture is beautiful, harmonious, and just deeply satiating. And their souls are always elevating every single year. Not in a woo-woo way where it's like just drinking coconut juice and going vegan. I eat Macca's every week, well, every few weeks now. And it doesn't really affect my life because I know how to portion control. And it's the same with this person who, they know how to be human in this world. They don't have to be overly spiritual, but they just know how to allocate their time, their energy, and their resources in a way that nourishes their life. So regardless if they have less than $1 million, like even if they have a very stable, okay salary, but they're able to use that money amount, any amount, to nourish their life first. And it's ironic because if you're able to use a small amount of money to nourish your life, then eventually it draws the big amount of money to you because you've proven to the universe that you know how to handle small amounts of money. If you know how to respect a small amount of money, whether that is, $5,000 a month or less than that, which where I've been before, where I've never calibrated past a certain income per month, and it's a low amount. But eventually I was forced in a situation where I just had to learn how to use what I have, even as low as $400 a month. And I had to unlearn everything that I knew about money and find a way to nourish my life well with just $400 a month. But that being said, yes, I have support from my parents. Thank you for that. But it was hard. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that we put too much emphasis on the money amount, on the salary package that we see on the paper. But we don't put enough emphasis on our ability to use any amounts to nourish our life. Basically, this person whose decision, her habit, her mental attitude, her self-talk, her emotion, her belief, her thought, her expectation, her perception, her attention, and focus. She's elevated her consciousness to a level where she's not scared about life because she knows that she's the source, or he's the source of his life. And I know in this video, you may argue with me that if you have a very, very low salary and very low money, how do we survive off that? What I'm trying to say is that universe it's interesting because if you show yourself and the universe that you know how to make a small amount of money work for you well, and you know how to live an enriching life from within with the smallest amount of money, somehow opportunities just come to you to expand that money potential. So it's a very weird way that life works, because this person chooses to ask themselves where they're calibrating at, and they're choosing a safe, like, nervous system. Their priority is to feel safe in their body, okay? That's the deepest priority, which again is their well-being and their sanity. So therefore, let's just say we have 90 days. And let's just say here, hypothetically, this person in the physical reality, which is this line here, the 3D reality can show them that they're making $400 a month. Which is, of course, not, it's just too low for this day and age. You can't do much with it. But this person who makes $400 a month doesn't feel disempowered by the 3D reality giving her that. So there was a period of my life where, everything was, I've always been safe to have, my parents supporting me. I really appreciate that. But then there was a time where I went from being able to access normal things that an adult should be able to access, like dinner with friends, socializing with friends and stuff, to now literally sitting with myself close to my 30s and being I'm at rock bottom. So there's nothing I can do than to rise above this situation. So I started to train my body to be able to eat just enough. Not exactly starving myself, but eventually I had to learn how to stop looking at $400 per month as a way to minimize myself. So the first thing I had to do was to stop disrespecting myself based on a 3D situation. And of course, with this kind of amount, objectively, I can't afford to go out and have dinner with friends. I can't afford to go to cafe and brunch with friends on the weekend anymore. I couldn't afford to do many things that I could do in my 20s anymore. And life just felt sad. It just felt really entrapping. And on top of that, I would still try to go to Toastmasters and deliver all these speeches and just improve myself and send my resume out and, try my best to get employed. But then the way that I communicated was just not a good fit for any companies, because I was becoming more confident in myself, and speaking authentically to certain company is a no-no. So everything was going down the drain at a certain point in my life for a long time. And I was trying so hard to get back up. But eventually this period of my life, which it endured for years, it taught me that a money amount doesn't define the dignity that I have within myself. This person operating at a high caliber and chooses to prioritize her nervous system, prioritize their dignity under any circumstance. No matter how much they lose or how much they make, their state of being says, I have self-respect. This is really interesting because it alters the way you make a decision. So somebody who's their 3D reality is saying, shit, my life is falling apart, is collapsing. People are not going to hire me. People who did hire me, they're just underpaying me constantly, never going to increase my pay, no matter how much I improve myself for them. No matter how skilled I was, I just kept being in a situation where I wouldn't get paid, or I would just get severely underpaid. And it's just so, it was a very, very hard time to go through. But that hard time could transmute you like alchemy, because it will force you to let go of your lower I and to become the version of you who chooses dignity no matter what money is in your bank account. So no matter what you see, whether it's a zero, whether it's a minus, for a long time, you still, well, this is what I did at least, still got up at 4 a.m. every week, or 4:30 sometimes. And I used that allowance, the $100 per week, $70 to $100 per week, to go and swim. So I know that other people have different life decisions with this kind of money, but this is after I tried everything, and the jobs wouldn't get back, and everything just wouldn't work, and the Google ads wasn't paying, and just everything was blocked. So I was what can I do? So I basically invested in my well-being. I went to swim. And logically you're no, but I don't think you should swim, you should save up. But what can you save up from this, right? So this is what I call investing in your sanity, investing in becoming the version of you who can hold a large amount of money while the 3D reality is showing you is BS. And over time, I started making all these incremental decisions that were absolutely self-empowering. I started filming more YouTube videos. So I started doing like 100 plus YouTube vids in 1.5 months to stockpile it. And you know what's interesting? Because I planned for these videos to be released like in 7 months period, like once every day for 7 months on autopilot. And that brought me in no revenue, zero Google ads. I mean, maybe like $2, something like that. But even though on the physical plane, it still shows me a loss, like zero. So this is still dipping. This is still like wonky. But what I gained, the inner character that I gained was that it helped me tremendously to film these long videos. So it improved my attention span. It improved my stamina. It improved my mental resilience. It improved my organization skill because I proved to myself that I can work under pressure, from my own pressure. And when it doesn't show still, like I would still do a ton of things. Like I would not give up on working out. I would still like try my best to walk and stay fit. And because I have the opportunity to, I try to be a good daughter. Like since the circumstance forces me to be in this situation, then, you know, just like cook for my parents and treat my parents better, cook for parents and improve the way I cook as well. So I always improve and try to learn what tastes good and doesn't good. And over time, what happens is that an accumulation of these habits started to really, it started to compound my energy in a way where I felt inner conviction towards my future. And with this inner conviction, what it also gave me, a combination of these things, while the 3D was giving me absolute brokenness for a while, like plateau and brokenness, it made me feel like I like myself. And it made me feel like I respect myself, because even though in the physical plane, it's literally a trap, like I just don't know how to get out of it, because I try to do every physical thing, send resume out, go to job interviews, volunteer public speaking, try to compete so I can get more credible and improve my resume, try to build YouTube channel, try everything freelance, this and that, and it just, nothing was working. So instead of instead of me putting money on a pedestal, because I'm also fortunate to not have amazing parents, but besides that, you make the situation that you're in work for you. So if you can, you then, instead of investing, right, into outer things for outer fixes, you really invest within and go within to become the person who would eventually be able to hold $1 million. Not without like making it and then draining it, but in a way where when you swim, you're practicing your mental resilience while you swim, and you compound you learn about yourself. Like how was I able to do this on 4 a.m. wake up? How do I make myself feel safe in winter doing this? And this then links back to like your work. Like, okay, now my concentration level has gone up the roof because now I can endure longer hours of focus. And you're like, okay, the walking, it's helping me calm myself down so I know how to feel at peace with where I am. And you just keep improving yourself, like, whoa, even like amidst all this happening, I was still cooking amazing food for my parents every day, and also every weekend for a few months. So then this becomes an exponential point where within you're rich. So even if this is not merging yet, but the law of the universe says, as within, so without. And if you get to a point where you feel rich within, things start to really reorganize itself to serve you. So what happened was that eventually, because I kept stacking these habits and like, you know, I took care of myself, my body, my fitness, my mind every day, try to improve myself under this circumstance. And I promised myself that I would always love me and respect me and I would never drain my money again. Well, I got gifted free access to these like, you know, coaching and mentoring that I couldn't afford. And I just felt very fortunate because it just felt like the next step to get me to where I want to be. And it's just amazing. Whereas this person who is all about the 3D reality, what they usually do, right? So what this person usually does is that they still operate as the lower self, and they refuse to let go of their old paradigm. So this person, let's just say they start to get into this situation where life just forces them hell, like shit, $400 per month as well. But what do? If you cannot prove to yourself during these times where money is crap, people don't give a crap about you anymore. They tell you what to do. They tell you go get a job after you've tried relentlessly to make money. They tell you you're not doing enough. They tell you you need to improve yourself and do this and do that and apply here and apply there. And they just punch at the trauma that you already feel punched by. And everyone around you just kind of they value you based on the results you bring to the table. But because your outer reality is this, and people are just not celebrating you, they're actually demeaning you and diminishing you now. How do you treat yourself? Because this happens. When people start doing this to you, if you have a fragile sense of self, what you're gonna start doing is you're gonna start making really poor decisions where you're gonna make an unsafe decision where, okay, let me go and buy this, travel here, or get myself into huge debt. So the behaviors behind getting yourself into unnecessary debt, it's not just about money now, it's about your relationship to money. Because if you're calibrating at a level where you're fragile and you're weak, you're gonna make really mentally weak decisions. So what I'm trying to say is that no matter if you make $400 per month or you make $1 million, even per month, when your sense of self is fragile, eventually the world without is going to reflect that. So you'll never get yourself out of life conditions that absolutely drowns you. Because let me ask you, who has a more enriching life? The person who holds materially $10 million, they say I have $10 million, but they have a destructive life as hell. They surround themselves with people that want to leech off them. And then their $10 million get drained so fast by people that use them, people that befriend them for their money, people that ask them to take them out to clubbing, people that want to invest with them and do business with them just to take their money. And then in the end, their money just keeps going down the drain. Or the person who makes $400 per month. I get it, it's hard. But inside, within them, temporarily, when this situation is not permanent, they are learning how to calibrate themselves. They're learning the art of emotional resilience. They're learning the art of persisting and never giving up on themselves. They're learning how to love themselves through the times when nobody is showing much love to them on the outside. They're learning to embrace themselves. They're learning to hug themselves to sleep at night and telling themselves that tomorrow's going to be a new day and things are going to work out again. Who is the person who has a more enriching life at this point? If you're saying that it's the person that makes really impulsive decisions, so then they shot through the roof really fast, and then what happens is that their trajectory looks kind of like this. No matter if it's a lottery win, or they just, they somehow have the money, but eventually it goes down the drain. Because they haven't built the inner character to use money as a tool to have a nourishing life. So then they don't understand the art of persistence through times where the 3D reality is giving them the complete opposite to test their patience, to test their inner resilience. They haven't developed the mental fitness to be able to embrace themselves, to remind themselves that they're never a loser for what the situations that they're in, and that just because this is showing you for a year, 12 months, it doesn't mean you're a loser. And this is amidst people telling you, but you're a loser. Oh, look at your situation. Yeah, and then there's even worse than that, when I started to make significant improvements and my finances weren't changing, I would have people flexing to me. So they were seeking their self-esteem and validation from me. And it's like, come on, give me a break, right? But basically, they haven't learned the art of presence with themselves. They haven't learned compassion with themselves. They haven't learned how to be friends with themselves, be their own best friend. So then this person is absolutely blinded by these hindrances that I talk about in many of my videos. It's the one that I saw by TED Talk by Shaolin Master Shi Hengyi. And the 5 hindrances were sensual desire, ill will or aversion, restlessness, dullness, and skepticism. Then this person is all about sensual desire. So that's why when you see like rich kids and people, like, which I never understood back in the days, like why do rich people go and like splurge on drugs? Why do they, that money could have like bought me a new makeup eyeshadow palette to nourish my life. I used to think this, like when people used to tell me about things like, yeah, I just lost $20,000 to it. I'm like, far out, man, you can just give it to me so I can buy some eyeshadows and beautiful dresses and bikinis. I want to go for a swim. Jesus. And I used to get pissed when people would tell me this bullshit. Like, I just lost $5,000 to this thing. And it's like, the fact that you even have $5,000 to lose and you're brushing into my face, I don't have $5,000, is, you know what I mean? And the reason why this happens is because internally, like they're not calibrating at a level where they can hold not just the money, but a beautiful life that feels safe to them. Because if internally you are unstable, you are tumultuous, you're just not having an inner peace and self-acceptance towards yourself. Therefore, all the baggages that you've accumulated from your past is going to haunt you. And the only difference is that now you have money to magnify your life. So if you're calibrating at a place where you're just like, your trauma is unresolved, then the money that you have, it will absolutely 10x your trauma. Hence you see people buying a crap ton into drugs and alcohol, and they're just splurging, towards sugar babies, and then feeling resentful that these women are not loyal to them, or, the women spend it on like very weird things, right? And that's because it's not about having the physical thing only. It's about knowing how to navigate it with strength. It's kind of like driving a car. If you're weak and you're not focused when you're driving a car, you're going to crash it. So money is kind of like a car in a way. It's not about the money itself. It's about how you use it, how you allocate it, how you diversify, and how you diversify it in a way that nourishes your life for decades. Which then I'm going to lead to the next point. All right, let's go. So it's interesting because I know in this video I might get like, comments that are criticize me about, but you can't say this to people that live in my country in this context. Because I know, like, I'm Thai, and I see Thai YouTubers and I see the comments and I see a lot of things that to do with Thai people, and it's totally different, because that's when I start to learn that money itself is neutral, but it's the culture that you grow up in, what people value. So Thai people really value designer items. In certain societies of in Asian culture and Thai culture, having designer items like designer bags and driving a Merc and having a certain like life accessory to define you is like number one priority for them. So it's interesting because like you can have $1 million and then you can literally go and like get yourself into debt to get approval from friends to fit in a certain society, or you can use $1 million to like to not have to conform to how each society operates, and come back and ask yourself, what feels nourishing to me? And suddenly that value of $1 million becomes like $10 million in value to your life, because you know how to allocate in a way that 10x's your life. Whereas if you're burning $1 million in a way where you're seeking approval from people by buying too much designer goods and buying the cars that you can't afford because you want to fit in, then the value of the $1 million is pretty much only like a few thousand, right? Because you're going to drain it eventually and only have a few $1,000s left. So it's really interesting when you think about it this way. And the thing is, I used to be that person who made impulsive decisions and who never had the nervous system to even keep great friendships. So to me, it wasn't even just money. There were times where I pushed people away because of my unresolved baggage. And as a result, it influenced my decision to be very impulsive, to be to unsafe, and therefore it led beautiful things in my life to disappear. And that's the same with money. So then it comes down to self-permission. Because when it comes to your nervous system and how you calibrate, I understand with many YouTube videos, they will talk about things like, your nervous system, like you've got to feel familiar with having it, and they'll go down the neuro pathways and all that kind of stuff. But in simple terms, what do you feel familiar with in terms of self-permission? What feels familiar to you? Because again, do you give yourself permission to sometimes stop conforming for a while? Do you give yourself permission to stop being inauthentic? Do you give yourself permission to stop carrying beliefs that don't serve you, so limiting beliefs? And these limiting beliefs can be passed down through ancestral trauma, generational trauma, and epigenetics. So if your family believes that, our family is never destined to have that kind of house by the ocean front because that's just the way our family is, kind of thing. And then nobody in your family line really has life that you truly want, even if they're rich in bank account, but it's just somehow the whole architect of their life is not enriching. So you're like, well, if they're not allowed to have it, the people before me were never allowed to have it, why do I deserve to have it, kind of thing. Do you sometimes give yourself permission to be the person you've never been? Do you sometimes allow yourself to just go into the space where you're really allowed to just be the infinite consciousness within you? Now you're allowed to be the source. You're allowed to be the God of your reality. You're allowed to be creator. Or do you end up actually going to a group of people to discuss on the definition of God in terms of religion, and then you get into that debate with people? Or do you sometimes give yourself permission to just break the social contract? Because I tell you, where does money come from? It's really interesting, right? Because when you think about money, it's like, who pays us money? Well, in an ethical world, we're not going to go down OnlyFans and selling drugs and that kind of, dark web or anything like that. We're going to talk about ethical money. So let's talk about how do we earn money in a way that doesn't destroy our dignity and that gains ourselves some self-respect. Who pays us? Well, our employer may pay us if we work in 9 to 5, or even like contract. Clients pay us. Customers pay for our product if we sell like goods and services, like fruits, merchandise, stickers, cups, furniture. So customers pay for those like items. Well, if you're an influencer or you have a platform, then sponsors can pay sponsorship. If you're a content creator, even like Google Ads pay you, but then who pays for the Google Ads? It's the audience, right? Your audience. Who else pays? Well, what about the context outside of working? Because sometimes people that pay you can be family members. It could be inheritance. It could also be passive income from real estate, so investments and stocks and stuff. So what I'm trying to say is that money comes from people. I asked myself this crazily when I was younger. Where does money truly come from? Should I be an investor then? Should I just like trade options so I don't have to deal with people? Because there was a phase in my life where I was like, I'm sick of people. I don't like people. I just want to spend time with cats and dogs now. I'm just so done with drama. I'm going to become an investor one day and just like look at the data and look at the stats and just like predict the markets and make money that way. But other than that, majority of the time, the people that will pay you money are people who just embody these traits. As in the term employer, your manager, your client, your customer, your sponsorship, the Google ads, your audience, your family inheritance, and the people involved in real estate and the people that invest in shares. The people, right? So we think in a complicated way that, we're gonna make money by doing this and this, but at the end of the day, you're trying to get a yes from people, a yes from your employer to hire you, a yes from your clients to hire you, to work with you, a yes from your customer to pay for your service, goods and service, sponsorships to hire you again, Google ads for audiences to watch you, increase your watch time, family to pass down, say yes to giving you some inheritance, and real estate and stocks as well. Like it's I don't know, when you deal with real estate as well, like how do you sell properties? You deal with the person that's buying it, right? So it's so interesting. Basically, if you can get people and the world to say yes to you in an ethical way, then you become rich. But not just like bank account rich, but I'm talking about combined bank account rich, financial literacy, with also a high level of consciousness where you prioritize your well-being, you have your own values, you don't diminish your self-worth for anyone, and you know how to live in a safe and sustainable way where your health is thriving long-term. So you combine those two together, and what do you get? A very enriching life. So that's why it's interesting, because when it comes to self-permission, it's like we don't give ourselves permission to experience, or at least emotionally experience, things we've never experienced. So I used to ask myself interesting and existential questions like, well, I come to this place in Sydney and I didn't grow up in the wealthy area of Sydney. I didn't grow up poor, but it wasn't a wealthy area. And then one day I was like, I want to wake up by the sunrise, by the ocean waters. I want to understand the lifestyle. I want to understand the people. And so I made it like a commitment to swim there every week for 4 years. So it's on and off, but mostly it's very consistent. And I go to the sauna, and at first I went to the sauna to just, experience the sauna. But later on, I discovered that the sauna, at certain times of the day at the swimming center, it was a place where people came to share conversations. It was a place where people came to share about their weekends, how their business are going, what job they're having. And I started hearing terms like, my employees, this and that. He's the national sales manager at this place. Yeah, I opened a childcare center, and we opened the new one in Canberra in December. Yeah, we're hiring these people. Yeah, looking to have you heard about crypto and the new trend, looking at investments like this? Yeah, I've been investing now for 2-3 days a week, and then the rest I just come and swim. And I started hearing these conversations like, yeah, we took my family out to Queensland, for a getaway, and all these conversations that I don't get to hear in a different area of Sydney. Basically, I'm saying that when you're dealing with people, right, the more that you know how to build rapport, but you understand people on a fundamental level of what their values are, where they like to spend their time, why do they come to swim here every single week at this particular time of the day in the mornings, what's important to their life, and you start to understand what kind of voice do they bond to. So people bond with similar energies, frequencies, but also different, with the same aligning values and the same personality. And you start to understand how people talk, their mannerisms, the pacing of their speeches, and the kind of voice that you use and the kind of language you use. And you start to understand all these things. But how do you understand it? If you don't give yourself permission to immerse yourself in places, in environments that are rich to you, to your soul. If you're spending a crap ton of time around just your default ecosystem, and you're choosing to spend your Sundays just in areas where it doesn't feel rich to you, and it feels like scarcity, and it feels like, waiting for discount. I love discounts, and my dad loves discounts, and both me and my dad, like, we're really into coupons and discounts. But you gotta kind of allocate some time, right, to immerse yourself, give yourself permission to immerse yourself around people that have a broader consciousness than just, anyway. So basically, self-permission means that if the default environment that you were placed in makes you conform to this is how we're supposed to live. So basically, go to the cubicle in the morning versus ocean swim kind of thing. Or you've got to sleep for 4 hours and take a bunch of Zoom calls back to back because that makes you a more worthier person to grind it out really hard. That makes you a successful businessman. So if you're spending time around people that are making you conform in a box and you don't get to know who you are on a fundamental level, how do you expect yourself to be both paper rich, bank account rich, materially rich, but also use that riches to nourish your life? How do you supposed to, if you don't give yourself permission to stop being inauthentic and just pretend to minimize yourself to fit in with other people and be yeah, there's rich people, and just no, rich people, poor people, we're all people. We're the same. As in we don't have the same values or upbringings or socioeconomic status, I get it. But fundamentally, people are similar. People want compassion. People like bonding. I've experienced this personally, both in Thailand, in places where it's not very affluent, and I went to the most affluent place in Sydney. The people surround those areas. Okay, their lifestyle is different, and but their values are quite similar. People love bonding. People love building rapport. People love saying good morning in the morning. In Thai as well, it's oh, what do you have kind of thing in the morning. In Sydney, it's just morning, mate, kind of thing. So people like others to listen to them and appreciate them. People love having conversations. People like reading. People like, interacting with each other. This is very universal. So if you're saying rich people are different to you, rich people are evil, and I'm a good person, so I'm not rich, what does that do to you? You're basically not giving yourself permission to experience what you've never experienced. So therefore, when you start meeting people that have the resources to hire you, you can't bond with them. You can't make them feel understood. You don't understand their language because you choose to separate yourselves from people. What I'm trying to say is that when you give yourself self-permission to now stop having a limiting belief towards life, that rich people are evil because they're not. I mean, yes, there are douchebags that are rich, and then there are douchebags that are broke. So it's not the money amount that makes someone a douchebag or not, it's just them as a character. But if you give yourself permission to let go of this belief that yeah, these people in this area of Sydney, they're snobby. No, they're not. They're not snobby with me. Or the person you've never been. I couldn't swim my whole life, let me tell you. Until I was 28, until I gave myself permission to finally go to the exact ocean water pool that I wanted to go to and commit to going there until I can swim 2,000 meters within 10 months. From swimming in the baby pool only for 3 months and then 7 months later doing 2,000 meters. Because when you start giving yourself permission to open your world, and expand the way you see life and people, and you understand people, you understand homeless people, what they feel and that too, and you give compassion to them, but you understand people that have resources too, and you start to really see that people, it's just universally, fundamentally in every country, good-hearted people, kind-hearted people, they're same, they're similar. They say good morning to each other. They ask about, how's your weekend? In Thailand, it's oh,เป็นไงบ้าง ทำอะไรบ้าง อาทิตย์นี้ You know what I mean? They do the same thing. They say the same thing. So then what you do is you start to open your world by opening your perspective. So you broaden your perspective, which then makes you broaden your heart to receive. So then when you start to interact with these people, you don't see them as Frank, who's a millionaire, or Joe, who's a multi-millionaire. You see them as people, and you really understand their needs and everything. So then when When the market's like, you got to understand the customer's needs and all that kind of stuff. It boils down to you understanding humans on a fundamental level. So when you understand these people on what they want, okay, what your employer wants as a result of hiring you, and most of the time, employees from all over the world, whether employers in Thailand, employees in Australia, employees from India, when they employ you, when they give you the budget to hire you, they want to feel relieved from work. And you understand on a fundamental level that you've given yourself permission to be who you've never been, to up-level yourself, upskill yourself, understand these people, and deliver on the promise to the people that can hire you to do so. And you understand your clients, like, what do they struggle with? What's their upbringing like? What's their values like? What do they value? Where do they want to go to? And why aren't they there? And you start to open your world, just hearing conversations and just immersing yourself and feeling familiar with the life that you've never lived. Same with customers now. That's why a lot of entrepreneurs go to different countries. Like they go to Asia, they go to like Europe, and they see the market and like, they've given themselves permission to be who they've never been. So then they see like, oh, in Asia, they're selling these kind of products. Yeah, let me do it in the Australian market. Or the Asians, they go to like Europe or something and they see that, yeah, people do this in Europe, so I'm going to bring it to a Thai market. And I understand it costs money and you got to be a certain level of wealth to do that. But I'm saying, just if you give yourself permission to experience different flavors of life, to let down your ego and open your heart, then you get to connect better with people under these titles, sponsorship, Google Ads, your audience, your customers, and you make people feel like connected to you. And then it's like, sure, yes, I'll invest in you. And self-permission is you, what are you doing to yourself? You're investing in yourself. Hence, investing in your well-being and your sanity, to then be able to be healthy and thriving enough to experience different facets of life, to understand people on a universal level and deliver on the promise that they'll pay you for it. Anyway, wow, that was okay. Anyway, so I'm going to end the video here. And if you want to get coaching if you would like to receive coaching because you are looking to expand that income and life potential, whether through getting your dream job or starting or growing your business, and you're just literally 90 days away from that breakthrough at most. Well, my mission is to help high-achieving women reach the tipping point in 8 to 12 weeks by shattering the inner world ceiling. And if that sounds like you, get in touch. All right, see ya.